This week on the O The Anthem podcast, we talk about the George Floyd protest fallout, including more charges being brought against the officers. And we talk a little bit about things that are happening here in LA, National Police Misconduct Database, Republicans taking a real inopportune time to talk about the Tiananmen Square anniversary. And then furthermore, we just are talking about everything that's going crazy in the news right now, including more COVID, restarting production on film here in LA, Third Amendment coming off the top rope and the amendments showdown that's happening right now. We got a whole lot going on. You don't want to miss a beat. Come join us right now at the O The Anthem podcast. So much to do and so little time to do it. This is Corey, and this is the O The Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to yet another episode of the O The Anthem podcast, number 320. I forgot to look. 322, I think.
Yes.
That's where we are. Coming to you once again from the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for tuning in on your podcatcher of choice. The easiest way to do it, anchor.fm/O The Anthem.
And, of course, we have a lot of people watching us live right now. You can watch us over at facebook.com/O The Anthem, on Twitch, on YouTube, on Periscope, which is attached to Twitter, and in the Anthem Alliance group on Facebook, all at O The Anthem. So great, easy places to join us. And one thing I really loved from last week's episode, Corey, participation from the audience.
Yes.
We absolutely love that. We have it connected in right now. I'll show everybody at home who's watching the video. All you have to do is just send us a comment. It'll appear right here in the middle of your screen, and we can discuss whatever it is you would like to discuss.
And wherever you're watching, that comment will come in. It'll be funneled in. So
all over every place, including something we started this week, the brand new Discord server.
Yeah.
So for all of you guys who are, on the fringes of society, apparently, you could join us over on Discord. We have an Anthem Alliance Discord server. We have conversations about the show all week long, conversations about new shows that will be happening there, although you probably won't be able to see those. And all of that will be funneled directly into the show here. So a lot of ways to reach us.
Yes, indeed. And first of all, I would like to just say that obviously we posted a little bit later than we did than we usually do last week because we were respecting the blackout. Mm-hmm. I feel like we told everyone well enough and that was happening, but just in case anybody was just like, why was it late last week? Well,
And also, fuck you. Listen,
sometimes the wills of society take over the...
There are more important... As much as I love doing the podcast, we've done this 322 consecutive weeks. New content every single week. There are things more important.
Yes.
And there are things more important in the opinion of two white guys from Maryland who are living in Los Angeles. And at that point on Tuesday, we felt it was better that you hear voices that are not our own.
Yes.
So we stayed silent, let everybody else speak up, and you still got your episode. So if you got a problem with it, oh well.
Anywho,
continuing to piss off everybody who was pissed off about the episode last week.
Feel like we're doing a real Garcetti there.
Yeah, got to do it.
Everyone mad at
us. So of course, the topic of the week, the George Floyd protest. And I mean, we're calling it George Floyd protest, but this is one of those things that I think we hoped for a long time. For those of you who hung out for the intro video, Corey and I have been talking about this for 5 years now.
Yes.
You saw an episode from 2015, post Freddie Gray. You saw an episode from 2017 or 18, somewhere along there.
It was 2 years later.
Yeah.
So it was May of 2017.
And here we are once again talking about systematic racism, violence against black people held by the police. And I mean, at this point, I'm so frustrated. I don't even know what to say, but we'll call it the George Floyd protest because finally his death has brought a lot of people to the table who weren't paying attention before.
Yeah.
And I think it's apt that at the top we just talk about the changes in his case, because there has been a few of those in the past week.
Well, I mean, like, much of what we talked about last week, it was how not getting on top of this quicker really did not turn down the temperature at all. But you know what? Honestly, I feel like the temperature was going to be high in this case regardless, and getting quicker charges wouldn't have done anything. But I feel now at least we have more reasonable charges. I question how successful they'll be in court still, because it's still a slog against any police entity.
One of those things, yeah.
They upgraded Chauvin to second-degree murder, and then gave the other 3 officers involved aiding and abetting a second-degree murder.
Right.
So they're not being charged with a murder itself, but it still carries like 15 years per.
Yeah, it's nearly as bad as the charge itself.
Right.
And I think that they got aiding and abetting before the fact. And the difference between that being obviously after the fact is when someone you know has committed a murder and you like hide them. Aiding and abetting before the fact is when you assist in them committing the crime.
Right.
Which I think perfectly fitting for the guys who, you know, were also kneeling on his body, and
you didn't personally pull the trigger and kill the guy, but you did help drive me to the place where we killed the guy and then take the body and help dump it later.
And also gave you the gun. I also gave you the gun with which to shoot him. And also fitting for the guy who stood there doing crowd control for people who literally all he wanted was for him to not kneel on his neck. So, and what did it take? I don't want to say we're prophetic, but we said Keith Ellison, now Attorney General of Minnesota, at one time up for chair of the DNC, was the guy for the job. And in the last week since we've recorded, the local DA stepped aside, pushed it up to Keith Ellison's office, and we finally got some change, some movement from Keith Ellison's office. That's where all of this comes from. It doesn't come from the local DA. This is, I'm not going to call him our guy, but our guy from years ago.
What it took was sustained pressure. Yeah. And sustained pressure has not only been getting the charges upgraded in the George Floyd case, but also putting Breonna Taylor's case back into open investigation, which it never should. Like, at no point, the fact that there aren't, it was 4 officers involved, I believe, in the no-knock warrant and the going in. And to be honest, this was a case we wanted to talk about, but was also sort of in the middle of a lot of COVID news. And it also felt like at the time that it didn't have all the information that it sometimes it's hard to decide what to talk about because it doesn't feel like a complete picture, or enough so that you like.
We held one week back on Ahmaud Arbery because I think that kind of came to the surface on Monday morning, and it was like, feel like this is something that's got more details. By the way, the guy who took the video, that released the video, later got charged. So yes, there was more details there. It was more than what we saw in the video. And I think Breonna Taylor's was the same way, that there is, what have we learned since it kind of first broke? Details that have come out. One, her boyfriend, who was the one who shot at police, or the one they were seeking, licensed gun owner. Where's the NRA? Same as Philando Castile. Where are you, Second Amendmenters, who said your door gets knocked down in the middle of the night, you reach for your legal firearm and fire at the perpetrators, and it just so happens it's police doing no knock on a wrong house. Yeah. Well, you know, I got Second Amendment rights, my man. You came into my house in the middle of the night, you get shot. That's what happens. Not hearing a lot of that from the Second Amendment.
I like the general. There was the Onion article where it's like NRA totally missed an opportunity to step up against a tyrannical government, and like missing their cue. It's
I mean, I don't know if we've ever. It's been a long time. We've talked about a lot of stuff, but California it's very hard to get a firearm in California. You can get a long gun in about 11 days, but to get a handgun, upwards of 30 days to do the multiple background checks, and you have to say why you need it. Yeah. Like, it's not a right as necessarily. It's a privilege to have it. And that is because, by the way, in the 70s, California had some of the most liberal gun laws in the country. But what happened in the 70s that changed all of that? Oh, right. The Black Panther movement in California said we should start arming black people. And then all of a sudden, Ronald Reagan said, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know if we can have all of this. We got to make this stricter. And they did. And now it's really difficult to get a firearm in California.
Yeah.
So I kind of, and the NRA, by the way, back then, I don't know that it existed. I think that was an 80s institution, but there were gun rights groups.
Everyone who cares at all about the NRA, and even if you don't care about the NRA and you just want to watch them like fail consistently, there is a capitalist. Oh fuck! God damn it! I'll have to look it up. It's a podcast where they break down the recent history of the NRA, and to say that it is corrupt is I don't feel like there's a word for corruption that really emphasizes how corrupt it is.
We have that. It's Congress. That's the word we use for that now. Yes.
Corrupt it's a Congress of corruption.
Yes. Yeah. But so Breonna Taylor's case is reopened, and not reopened because it was never closed, but it was like allowed to stagnate. And one of the guys in the Ahmaud Arbery case has requested a speedy trial. Which actually came out right before George Floyd's news came out. And for those of you at home, by requesting a speedy trial, that means he needs to go to trial in 180 days or less from that moment, from the day that he requests it.
Yeah.
When you are a suspect in a murder trial, generally speaking, you don't do that because you want time to build a defense, and also you want time for your attorney to get out on the news and be like, listen, my guy is a stand-up guy in the community.
You want people to forget about it.
Or that. Yeah, that can also help you. Speedy trial, because here's the thing. When they go to a grand jury, they have a bunch of evidence that they're going to use against you when it comes to trial, and you have nothing. So basically it's like, well, we want to see what they got. Okay. But also people are going to be talking about this 180 days from, especially now.
Yeah.
But I wonder, one of the first things I have thought about, his lawyer was back on Chris Cuomo's show a couple of days, like last week at some point. And I was like, how much is he kicking himself for that speedy trial? Because then George Floyd happens right after that. And you're like, oh, people are definitely going to be talking about this. Okay. That's going to be a problem. All right. But not only Breonna Taylor, not Ahmaud Arbery, not just George Floyd, but cases across the country where it is still within the statute of limitations to do so.
Yeah.
There are people saying, well, what about this guy? This was a hashtag we had a year, 8 months ago, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And nothing ever happened. And now let's put pressure on the DA to say, at least go to a grand jury with whatever you had and see if you can get a charge. And a lot of places are moving that direction. So on the legal front, at least, some progress, some hope of justice for people.
Well, and I think bigger news than that, another thing that has come of this is the Minneapolis Police Department is going to begin the process of defunding their current structure and going to more of a community-based...
City of Minneapolis is going to defund the police department.
Right.
They are not choosing on their own to be defunded. Right. They would not choose to do that.
Yeah. Clearly not. But... So yes, misspoken words there. A little
Minneapolis,
bit,
and I have gotten hit up by at least 3 people since I posted that on my Instagram story, and people just asking me like, "Hey, so I feel like you are an anti-government guy to begin with,
radical."
Let's call me a radical.
Okay.
So what would you replace the police with? Because I see you post this thing about Minneapolis. I see New York. People in New York are calling for it. People in small towns and mid-sized cities and big cities are calling for this. What's the next thing then? What do you do? Now, I will say I think Minneapolis is doing it the right way because they're saying our intent is 1 year from today to not have the Minneapolis police force. What it will be is going to be a meeting of the town or the city and the citizenry to decide what comes next. But mostly a focus on social welfare, social workers, those kind of things, mental health care, meaning that when a guy is having a mental breakdown, you don't send a guy with a gun who has been trained by a crazy person in a seminar to shoot first and have a warrior mentality. Yeah. You send a social worker who's like, listen, 99% of crazy guys with knives are never going to use it on you. They're more likely to use it on themselves before they use it on you.
Yeah.
And like another thing that I saw on Twitter this week was like humans, like every animal, have ticks, and you can look in someone's eyes and judge their face, judge their skin flushing, and know, is this person really a risk to come at me? Are they in the aggressive stance towards me, or are they stay away from me?
Yeah.
This knife is to keep you from me, not to come at you with.
don't-
And social workers know that.
You don't see a little old lady like look up at you, and then when you turn away, she like stabs you.
Yep. Doesn't happen.
Because usually you can just tell by somebody's.
Caveat. Right now, that might happen because a lot of little old ladies are seeing cops shove old guys down.
Yeah.
And then in Buffalo, 57 members of the special team, where 2 of them were suspended for shoving the old guy down, resign.
Oh,
Goodbye, fuckers.
Whoa.
Yeah.
They didn't. This is an important caveat.
Okay.
They didn't resign from the police department.
From the team.
They resigned from the team.
Yeah.
Because they argued that or their union argued that if they are willing to charge these 2 brave officers who are doing nothing but their job, then they will charge any one of you to do the same.
Yep.
So everyone must get off that squad and refuse to do like riot policing.
So an important thing about that caveat, though, in Buffalo, those are the guys who have access to automatic weapons, riot gear, tanks, Bearcats. So goodbye, fuckers. Not guys I want in Bearcats with riot gear.
So we're talking about defunding the police department. By the way, something that not to come back to this point, but we've talked about quite extensively.
Yes, yeah,
over the last couple of years.
And I will say, I do remember Corey from 2015 being like, "Whoa, now wait, defund the police? We don't want to go that far."
I was fine with getting rid of like the toys. Like I don't feel like police departments should have tanks, and I don't think that the Baltimore Police Department is a $500 million budget.
Yeah.
The LA Police Department currently is a $1.1 billion budget, and Garcetti had proposed a $1.8 billion budget,
which is actually not 100% accurate because they also go out and get private funding for an additional $500 to $1 billion.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, you're going to give us 1.8, and then we also have this scholarship to buy a Bearcat that's going to give us $300,000, and the military is decommissioning a battleship. And we're gonna pick one of
Baltimore
those
is not paying for their spy plane. That's
Right.
that's a gift from a rich, benevolent person who clearly wants to see more spy planes in the air.
I got other words than benevolent, but yeah, let's call them benevolent. But so this is one thing that we had talked about doing this week. I wanted to capture Corey's actual first impression upon hearing my idea.
Okay.
Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. It's not guillotines, although can I suggest guillotines? Because I feel like that will help.
I mean, the First Amendment is in vogue these days.
It really is. And listen, if we're pulling out anarchic amendments, we're going to talk about the third being flexed a little bit a little later. But here's my proposal. And people asked me, and I gave it some thought. And here's what I'm thinking. Let's take what we have now. And I also was reminded by John Oliver of the Camden, New Jersey approach. So I'll say step 1, we'll call it the Camden system. Fire everybody, make them reapply for their jobs. And then also tie in with that Senator, I think it's Malaki, something with an M. Mm-hmm. His proposal, which just went up today, to create a national police misconduct database.
Yes.
And basically be like, all right, you're all fired. Now you can reapply for your jobs. Step 1, do you have anything in the registry that we should know about? Now,
Right.
it's not going to be a disqualifier, but if you don't tell us, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Just like every job from McDonald's to CEO in the country, it's never a problem that you have some sort of thing in your past. It's a problem that you didn't tell us, and we found out about it later. So
I'd rather you tell me and explain it to me rather than me find out later. Because if I look and see that you stole money later, like when I do my background check, then I'm not going to care about what your excuse is. If you tell me ahead of time, like, no, shit. I worked at this place that charged 25 cents for coffee, and they fired me, and they pressed charges, and I didn't pay the 25 cents, but I was going to get it out of my car later, and it became a huge fucking deal.
Yeah.
And I'd be like,
okay,
yeah.
By the way, we have free Cokes here, so feel free. Have at.
Don't leave your quarters at home. Like,
yeah. So, number 1, Camden, New Jersey approach, tied in with the new database, which absolutely, by the way, we've been talking about again for years and should have been implemented a long time ago. Number 2, we create a police force that looks like the following. based on response to calls averaged out over the last 5, maybe even the last 10 years, we create a 4-tiered system. And when I say response to calls, I mean calls from the public and not fake calls that are produced by DAs trying to get no-knock warrants and nonsense like that. But calls from the public. Tier 1.
Calls to 911.
Calls to 911.
Yeah.
Tier 1, the largest tier. Police social workers. They work for the police department, but their field of study is psychology, social work, de-escalation. How do we mediate difficulties in the community?
If there is a homeless person acting crazy on the sidewalk,
Send one of
and
them.
somebody calls 911, you don't send an officer with a gun. You send a social worker who knows how to hopefully de-escalate the situation.
And by the way, at the same time, get that person the help that they need. Get that person the resources they need. Listen, let's get you some mental health care. Let's also get you signed up to get housing if you are interested in that. Let's get you some medical care, because by tying in social services with the police, which is what we already do when you call the police on people with mental health problems, then we can actually get them resources as well. So the biggest tier, social workers. Next tier, I'm going to describe it as this. Bobbies. Do you know what I mean by that?
Bobbies.
British police.
Oh, yes.
So what is the one difference?
No guns, just the billy club, right?
And for the first few years at least, no billy clubs, whistles. That's all you got, just a whistle. And here's the thing that what a lot of cops talk about is, and what the president has talked about is dominance, and that's putting feet on the block and just showing our presence. And now the bad side of that is what the president talks about, like putting National Guard in the street. The good side of that is what they did in New Orleans, what they've done in Austin, and is that where the guy was from? Austin, who almost became Baltimore's?
No, Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And what the guy did in Fort Worth, he almost came to Baltimore, was basically bring back the walk your beat. Know your neighborhood, walk your beat. They know you, you know them, and the guy on the corner isn't the scary kid. It's the kid who's the high school football star. He's 6'5" and 300 pounds, and he's gonna end up going to Texas A&M. But you know that because you're there.
Yeah.
You're not in a car. You're on foot in the neighborhood. And you also don't have a gun, so there's no chance you're going to shoot him.
Yeah.
And maybe in a few years we'll give you the baton back, but right now, just a whistle. And you put so many people around that if something goes wrong, radios, I mean radio. I don't mean really whistle. I just mean be able to call in reinforcements.
Right.
But something goes wrong and you need a show of force. Great, a bunch of guys show up. Level 3, also taking from the British example, armed police. Now, in Britain, there are special cops who are armed police. The moment they get out of their car, what do they have to tell the public around them?
I have a gun.
Armed police! Armed police! They let everyone know from the moment they leave the car that they have a gun. And you don't call them that often.
Yeah.
You call them when they say, hey, this guy's got a gun. Well, everybody back off. We're going to call the armed police.
Yeah.
So you call them in, and just like, a lot of feet on the ground, then some guys in cars that can respond where they need to, no guns, and then a little fewer number of these guys in vans maybe that are armed police, 4 to 6 people with firearms, and they can respond when necessary. I use the example, did you watch The Watchmen on Amazon, was it? Or HBO?
No.
So I like to think of it like that. All the guns are locked up inside the back of this van. And then it takes an order from headquarters to unlock the guns in the back of the van. So nobody gets to go all, John Wayne and just pull over, run their van up on a curb where there's a bunch of guys standing and then hop out and grab a gun out of the back.
Yeah.
You got to get an order to take the gun out. So that's level 3. It is not the smallest, but again, we're getting smaller. Lots of social workers. A big group of unarmed
cops.
police.
Yeah.
A small group of armed police. And then the smallest group, the SWAT. Let's make SWAT what it should be. Special Weapons and Tactics. I
want SEAL Team 6 for SWAT.
Yeah,
I want the best of the best, the people who've been training for this forever, and I want their credentials to be so incredible that they can't be, they're they get the extra courses on the legal training and stuff like that. And
and honestly, in my discussion with someone today, what I said was a situation where you bring out SWAT should be one of my concerns is we have a lot of veterans coming back, Army Rangers, SEAL team members who are retiring.
Yeah.
That's a great job for them. And of course they said, well, but now you have guys who are battle hardened. And I'm like, we shouldn't call SWAT unless the rules of engagement are basically the same. If there's a guy in a bank just shooting out into the street,
yeah,
that's a war zone. I want a guy who is going to go in there and just, listen, here's your target, take him down. Don't shoot any civilians. Do what you got to do to take him down.
What's really been interesting to me in the discussions of the last 2 weeks here since George Floyd's murder is that we haven't really had a discussion about the two types of police that we have right now, more or less. You can basically break police into two categories.
Yep.
Patrol and it's different in different places, but
SWAT.
like the not uniform. What is it? Plainclothes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, like within plainclothes, you usually have homicide, you have property crimes, you have things that are coming in after the fact
Vice.
to try and help solve something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, plainclothes officers are the go get them officers. They're the proactive department.
Yeah.
Whereas patrol is a car just crashed through my fence. I need an officer here to write me a report. Mm-hmm. Or I just had my car broken into. I need to alert the police. These types of things are the type of things they send a patrol officer out to.
Yeah.
And most of those interactions with people don't have to involve a gun or a cop or someone who's trained to be a cop, So I think that there's a importance for I like your plan because it has the beat cops, the ones that are in the neighborhood, the ones that fill people with some sort of sense of trust. Like this is John. He's the officer that walks around the block all week.
And by the way, the one who gets to know people and maybe ends up going to your kid's high school graduation because he's seen him grow up.
Well, anytime anyone ever talks about the good cops in their life, they're usually talking about these types of people who take the time to go beyond what the job is supposed to entail and treat people like with dignity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The problem is that for the most part, the plainclothes divisions are filled with people that are constantly violating civil rights of people.
Yeah.
We go back to the Gun Trace Task Force. They were doing all the things that the Baltimore Police Department was letting people get away with because somewhere in a Supreme Court decision it allowed that police officers were allowed to do it. Yeah. So they'd come screaming up to a corner in their car going 60 miles an hour and slam on the brakes, coming right up to a bunch of people just hanging outside of a liquor store.
Yeah.
Anybody who runs, you have permission to chase.
Yep.
If they run from you, you also have permission to beat their ass once they're down.
Yep. That's paying the tax.
That's paying the tax on having to do it. And once you get them, if they have cash on them, you are allowed to take a certain amount of cash because, it's basically like just paying to the Police Benevolent Foundation.
Why do you have it? I don't know, man. I just got it.
Yeah.
That's criminal means. Okay.
Well, you go to you get arrested. You had $300 in your pocket, and then when you go to collect the money that they took from you, you find out you have $100 left, and then they say we only found $100. So how are you going to prove that $200 was taken from you? And then it's a whole fucking deal. The plainclothes, for the most part, with the exceptions of investigative cops who work in homicide or work in property crimes or any of these sort of like subsects, special victims, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Anyone who is, showing up to work in a fucking t-shirt and trying to skirt the law in any way possible to get arrests and guns off the street is doing way more harm than good. Yeah. Because part of what I've been doing personally this week is thinking a lot about privilege and the privilege that we have, because a lot of companies and stuff like that have found that this is the most appropriate time to finally stand with the Black Lives Matter movement. And, everyone all across the board decides that it's uncool to not be in support of the cause.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have also been saying, examine yourself. Think about yourself. Think about how you could be better or where you've fallen short and how you can improve in the future. And one of the things that I thought about was when we were first getting an apartment in Baltimore, we sort of said to ourselves, we were very broke at the time. You were in college. I was very broke. I think we said we wanted to try and get somewhere around a $500 a person budget.
Yeah.
For an apartment in the city. And we found a place that was the $500 budget, but it also had a bullet hole through the window.
Yeah.
And
that was in East Baltimore, right?
Yeah,
Highlandtown?
No,
Yeah.
it was way West Baltimore.
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. But, you know, and the guy who was showing the place around was like, oh, that's not a bullet hole. And I'm like,
I know a bullet hole, man. Come on.
I know what a bullet hole in a window looks like.
I mean, we'll make sure that's fixed before you guys move in. Like, okay.
Don't really want to sleep in a place where a bullet hole might go through the window that I'm peeking my head through, you know? Like, but we were lucky enough that by means we were able to scratch together an extra $150 a person and get a nicer place. People who live in West Baltimore, $500 a month for an apartment is already sort of a king's ransom for some people.
Yep.
And the fact that you don't have work that's in the neighborhood, you have to travel multiple hours via multiple buses to get from where you're at to where you're going. The fact that you are more likely to have a charge on you that I wouldn't have, that is going to make it harder for you not only to get a place, but to get a job that gives you more money, that gets you a better place.
Yeah.
All these things. I thought about that moment specifically where we were able to collectively say to ourselves, it's worth more. It's worth us to push our budget and find a better place than it is to live here and deal with the possible violence that might incur.
I mean, we were looking at things like how many games a month are we going to go to? Let's factor that into the rent. Not
right.
This is what we have and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, tickets are $18 a pop. So if we want to go to 10, I guess we have to go to 5 less games this year or per month, 5 less games per month to factor in the extra rent that we're going to have to pay. Okay.
Yeah. And to think that's something that was heavy on my mind this week because most people are thinking about it, I think, in terms of how have you been racist when people are saying, you know, like examine your privilege and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, when have you been racist in your life? And, you know, I think most people who, you know, aren't racist, because most people are, I feel like, aren't naturally racist, just say to themselves like, oh, well, you know, I've never called somebody the N-word. So how could I possibly have been, you know, like, but it's the little things that are not necessarily you acting racist towards somebody, but the system that allows you to succeed at the failure of others.
Yeah, and every success you have was someone else's failure. There's no job where you were the only one who applied. There's no apartment where you were the only one who applied to.
Well, not only that, but like, you know, if you, I was talking with Roberto about this earlier, where it's like, if you have 10 people who apply for a job, and just for numbers' sake, 2 of them are black, right? Mm-hmm. And those 2 black candidates have a less of a resume than the other white candidates. It's not because they're not talented and able. It's because they've been given less opportunities.
Right.
Statistically speaking, not, you know, like every case is different, obviously, but I'm saying, like, statistically speaking, if you're, you know, a black applicant for a job, you've been given less opportunity to succeed. You've been paid less than a white counterpart. Much like, you know, women have been paid less than men, and black women have been paid less than anybody.
Yeah.
For like ever. It's don't take to the white people who are going out there in their own process of examining how they could be better to other people. Don't necessarily think about it in terms of how you have wronged people, but like how we together as a society have wronged people, because that's the place that. And, you know, if you think about it like that, then you can think about times and places where, you know, it doesn't feel like an advantage that you paid a little bit more for an apartment, but like that.
It was
an opportunity that wouldn't have been afforded if we were 2 guys looking for an apartment and we were black and we were from West Baltimore. That $500 a month with 1 bullet hole in the window might have been hellacious
like,
to
all right, yeah,
what we were allowed to get.
I mean, listen, I got into law school late. I took the bar late. I applied late. I got in late. And I got in under the fact that they were holding a certain number of seats for the undergrad. For the same school. For the undergrad from the same school. And although I wasn't coming directly out of undergrad, I had gone there for undergrad. So it got me in. But Again, let's look backwards. It was a private school in New York. Tuition was $52,000 a semester.
Yeah.
I think $52,000 was law school, but $34,000 a semester.
Yeah.
So not a public school, and there was very little income based financial aid. It was a lot of merit based. So you go to a high school that doesn't offer AP classes, harder to get merit based stuff for college.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the likelihood of someone going to Hofstra, much lower, because you can't get merit-based scholarships based on your high school availability, and there's not income-based financial aid. All right. Now, flash forward 4 years, I'm getting a seat at the law school because I was able to get into the undergrad because my high school had AP classes.
Right.
I was able to get merit-based financial aid, which got me into the undergrad. Then the seats they hold for law school gets me in there. It doesn't seem as though there's any privilege in that. But the reality is, my mom being a principal of a school got me into that school, not the less good high school, which, by the way, majority black. The school that I went to, majority white. One has really high test scores, one did not. So I went to the one with higher test scores and better classes and better after-school activities.
Yeah.
Which got me into Hofstra, which got me merit-based financial aid, which led me 4 years later to get a seat very late in a sitting class for law school. All of which comes back to the fact that when you're talking about systematic, building wealth in houses, redlining neighborhoods like they have done in Baltimore, and not being able to buy the house that you're in because you can't get a loan for a house in that neighborhood, and just on back and on back. And Maryland had Jim Crow just like Alabama did.
Even in the small term sense, like the Baltimore in the last couple of years had problems with heat in schools and air conditioning. Like there were days that school had to be canceled because it was too hot.
Yeah.
And if kids were inside of 100-degree day inside of the school with no air conditioning, no open windows, and they'd all die. They'd all pass out. And yet the police department budget is $500 million, and the payouts that the city makes to people who have been wronged by police violence is millions upon millions of dollars as well, and more to come.
And we talked about it in that episode from the opening about Freddie Gray, how they ordered riot gear the night before the riot and had it overnighted to the city at the cost of $1.5 million in shipping to get it there.
Yeah, to speed it through.
And again, and I mean, one of the things I pointed out this week, look at what our first responders are fighting COVID with, but when it comes to putting down protests,
you got fucking Master Chief out there.
Yeah, no expenses are too much to get armored vehicles and riot gear and everything else.
The average riot gear uniform minus the weapons is about $5,000.
Yep.
Just like helmet, bulletproof vest, protective, everything, boots. That's $5,000. Mm-hmm. The amount that it costs to give personal protective equipment to a frontline medical worker is under 10.
Yeah.
So we're talking about humongous amounts of. I mean, it's just the type of thing that it's not. And a lot of Democrats who have been quietly allowing police departments to run rampant.
Mm-hmm. Baltimore, New York, LA.
There's the police unions to I don't want to say their benefit, but to the benefit of their members and to the benefit of them running wild, have made it very clear that regardless of Republican or Democrat, if you're not pouring copious amounts of money into the police department, then you will be defeated in whatever you try and do, because the unions are too strong and powerful for any kind of oversight. And I think that this week in particular, for people in LA, that was painfully obvious, because there's no other way to put it other than Eric Garcetti is a massive pussy.
I was going to say, I don't want to get out of here without giving you the chance to talk about the other systematic problem here in LA.
I would say that LA generally is a more progressive place. I think we're not San Francisco progressive, but we're in the Bernie mode of progressivism, There's people.
It ain't Alabama. Let's put it that way.
There's more people to the left of Bernie, but we're fine with our Bernie territory.
Yeah.
You know? And it's just shocking to watch Garcetti, who's wears the clothes of a politician who is bought and paid for, but speaks the words of somebody who is progressive in nature and heart.
Politician. Yes. Yeah.
He pisses off both the protesters and the police in such unbelievably masterful ways. He's trying to hold this house of cards together as valiantly as he can without pissing off anybody, and all he's doing is pissing off everybody at the same time. And I think that when you talk about community policing and like disbanding police departments and defunding police departments and all the other variants of what we're talking about, it doesn't work for every police department. Easton, for instance, which is a smaller town, can maybe operate a little bit more like it has been because it doesn't have as many officers. I don't know this for sure. I'm just sort of throwing out numbers.
Funny thing about that, because they whipped out the riot gear this past week or the week before, and people were just like, why do you have this?
Right.
But Department of Defense did a lot of cheap loans in the aughts, and they picked up a Bearcat and a Humvee and a lot of riot gear. So.
Right. But I mean, like across the board, defunding police isn't like appropriate for every single police department.
And by the way, small towns like that have the ability to just be like, hey, we're going to shift resources to social services rather than police. And it's not defunding the police. It's just saying
reallocating the police.
911, send out a social worker instead of sending out a cop.
Yeah.
Which is what Minneapolis is talking about doing. But you have to basically, on a city of that scale, you have to be like, all right, we have to take money from you and move it somewhere else.
This has to go through the city council. And
in the town, it's just like, hey, so you were getting 120, they were getting 100. Next year, they're going to get 120, you're going to get 100.
Yeah.
So that's how it breaks. Sorry.
But I think if anybody is definitely in place for a massive reshuffling of what a police department looks like, especially a large city police department, it's the LAPD.
Garcetti has taken $150 million and reallocating it to social programs.
That is equivalent to about 5% of what the LAPD budget was. We were talking about
of the increase this year to the budget.
They're not doing the increase. Thank God. They originally Garcetti was going to give them $1.8 billion. He decided to stick with the $1.1 billion they're currently making, and has decided to cut $1 to $150 million of that, to which police officers all across LA County, from their homes in Simi Valley, are screaming bloody murder, saying you don't care about us. And the LAPD here, the videos have been coming out of police responding to protests of police brutality with police brutality, and I feel like there's been nowhere quite like LA and New York in the video evidence of this, because New York PD's got people like ramming SUVs through crowds. LAPD's got people doing literal fucking drive-bys of people standing on the corner.
Yeah.
Like,
who are just wearing masks, and I get it. Any other time, it might have been a protest.
It literally looked like a filmed scene. Like, it was so beautifully shot, showing the LAPD SUV pulling up to the corner, a cop with riot gear sticking out. Was it like a paintball gun or something?
Yeah. So if you guys haven't seen the video,
what was it? One of those
airsoft?
Yeah, something like that.
No, so it's a paintball gun. So as the vehicle is riding past the camera guy, the guy in the back seat pops out the window as if it was there for filming.
Yeah.
And doesn't even notice the camera, and they slide to a stop at the corner where he peppers the people standing on the corner.
Yeah.
So the reason they use a paintball is because so they call them rubber bullets, and the news has been saying non-lethal rounds, but they're actually technically referred to as less lethal rounds.
Yeah.
Because as we
when used properly, which is shot at the ground, not directly in somebody's face.
As we've learned this week, when you catch one of those in the dome, it can still kill you. If you catch one in the chest, it can still kill you. So another less lethal, but actually probably more like non-lethal weapon, is a pepper bomb, which is about like a paintball, and just has capsaicin or inside of it. So when it hits you, it bursts, and then you get hit in the face with all
Pepper,
the
yeah.
pepper stuff, and that acts as pepper spray, but it's more controlled. Instead of spraying an entire crowd, if one person's getting rowdy, you hit them in the chest, and it also gets on their clothing, and it's supposed to keep you from winding up, because every time you try to like clear it from your face, it's just coming out of your clothes, and you basically have to leave to go change. What it's not meant for is sliding to a stop and then hitting a crowd with like the rapid fire professional paintballer, like rounds, which is what the guy did in the video. So
Garcetti is just ridiculous, and it's so funny. Like I'm not. I feel like I'm
funny, sad, not funny, haha.
I mean, like I feel like I'm equal opportunity here. I call out Republicans, I call out Democrats. Whenever somebody does something stupid, I can't help myself. I just point and talk about it. But I don't get what his idea is here. Like, it really seems like if he just waits, somewhere in his mind he thinks in a week or two this is all gonna pass.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna be able to go on with my business. Nobody's gonna ask me about anything.
He's not wrong though.
What?
For the last 5 years, that's exactly what happened.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying like it never in that time has there been there was a George Floyd related protest in every single state in this country at some point in the last 2 weeks.
18 countries outside the U.S.
Yes, and the energy in some of the cities has been sustained consistently throughout these entire 2 weeks.
LA is averaging 10,000 marchers a day.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you get 10,000 people out every single day?
You have nobody working.
Like, that's true.
The film industry shut down. What do you think? The government's paying me to stay home, so
yeah, I guess I'll go out and march.
Might as well go march. I would say I personally have not been getting too involved with what's going on the ground, mostly because I'm concerned about the spread of the coronavirus, which is as we're about to talk about, still going up. But I would say to the people who are out there to please do everything that you can to remain safe, and please wear your masks, and please, to the best of your ability, try and maintain distance from people when you can.
When the cops fire the tear gas into the crowd, be sure to maintain 3 foot on each side as you run away screaming and crying.
I mean, clearly, we're dealing with issues on multiple fronts here.
Yes, yeah.
But I would like to say to everyone who's out there on the street, thank you for what you're doing, and we appreciate everything that's going on, and I will continue to do what I can to help people without actually having to be right out front
using this platform.
Yes.
And I do want to get to some other news this week, but there are 2 things. Let's just hit real quick. One, the Republicans are tone deaf AF because
no.
You mentioned New York and LA. Another city I would throw in there is DC, where the president ordered a photo op, which required clearing Lafayette Park, and we talked about that last week. In a city where that occurred, the Republican House Caucus then later tweeted about Tiananmen Square and how the brave protesters were cleared out of Tiananmen Square and what a crime against humanity that was, and saw no irony in the fact that the president of their own party did the exact same thing.
Yeah. And stood in front of St. John's with a Bible, holding it up like a fascist dictator holds up. It literally looks like the faked photo of Hitler holding up a book like that.
Yes.
It really, the reason why it took off so crazy is because I'm pretty sure I have seen pictures of Hitler with Mein Kampf holding it like this.
Yep.
Like he was selling it. Like it's not. It didn't match up with the picture that they actually had, but I feel like I have seen that a couple dozen times.
Here's the thing: there are pictures of Hitler holding a Bible. Now they're Hitler from 1933, so you don't really. It doesn't look like wartime Hitler, and that's why people don't use that one. But in his rise to power, he used religion a lot to try and motivate people. But nonetheless, just House Republicans, slow your roll.
Though I would say this, and I kind of mentioned it with companies finally sort of coming around to the idea of supporting Black Lives Matter in this regard. We have Mitt Romney out there walking with protesters, saying that what is going on with police in this country is wrong.
Yeah.
Beyond that, just in regards to Trump specifically, we had Colin Powell go on the Sunday show and talk about how he's not voting for Trump. He's going to vote for Joe Biden now that he's officially the Democratic nominee. George W. Bush has said he's not voting for Trump. He plans on voting for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
In a more cowardly statement, people like Paul Ryan have said, I'm definitely not voting for Trump, but I'm not telling you who I'm voting for, which means he's probably just going to write Paul Revere down or some shit like that.
Or his own name. Let's be honest. He might write his own name.
Maybe enough people will believe.
By the way, 3 generals, retired generals, have put out open letters saying, here's the situation in which you should disobey an order. Which I think is telling on what they think about the current state of the military.
Mattis, too. Mattis coming out and having a statement.
Yeah.
Like, it's so... I don't want to escape the tone deafness. I feel like there will be time at some point later when we can have a reckoning on some of these things. But, like, you know, the Washington Redskins putting out their Blackout Tuesday image, it rang a little hollow. And I don't know why. Usually the Washington Redskins, the pillar of... social justice, all racial issues. The Redskins are on top of. They never disappoint.
Yeah, the NFL putting out a statement that acknowledges Cap without acknowledging him, and then
it was wrong for us to try and silence the protest against the police and not mention Colin Kaepernick.
Who's, by the way, still actively suing him. That is ongoing right now.
You know what? Probably my favorite tweet is every week or so when I see it, just like randomly from some new person every time. It's the so Jay-Z, how's that relationship with the NFL going?
Yeah. I believe I called him a sellout the week that went in. I stand by that. And a bit of good news this week for George Floyd and his family, Corey. The job numbers are up, and George would be so proud of how strong
Trump said so himself. Yeah. What a fucking asshole. What do you say to number one? Just the way it's usually handled. I know that doesn't fucking matter, but usually the way it's handled is even if you had incredible job numbers, say you had 2% unemployment, right? Unheard of, incredible. If you were the sitting president, you don't want to go out there and take the curtain call on the 2% unemployment.
Now ain't the time.
You can say things that are kind of self-congratulatory, like I was very happy to see the job numbers come in and that unemployment fell to 2%. We're trying to do everything we can to improve upon that. Like, you know, it's always like taking this and moving forward and
working with our friends in Congress. We've done a great job.
It's not over yet.
Yeah.
We're still always pushing for better.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was promising news to have it going in the right direction. Trump going out there saying that George Floyd would be proud of double-digit unemployment is...
Listen,
the reason why you don't say it, by the way, even if it was a great number like 2% unemployment, is because 2 out of every 100 people doesn't have a job.
Yeah.
2 out of every 100 people who are capable of working doesn't have a job.
No. 2 out of every 100 people who have been looking for work and want to work, but not more than 10 weeks. Because after 10 weeks, they fall off that number.
Yeah.
So... realistically, it's not even 2% of people who want to work and can work. It's just 2% of people
who have been looking
for work and only looking for work and have only been looking less than 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So it ain't even that strong of a number to depend on.
Yeah.
And it's not that we had 1 million
but
less people file.
Somebody who's unemployed, even at 2%, is watching TV and seeing Obama say that, and he's like, yeah, fuck you, asshole. You ain't doing anything for my job.
But
I got fired from Chevy last week. What the fuck am I supposed to do to pay my mortgage and help my family? Because they feel reasonably like if the president is dancing, celebrating all this great news, like I'm not going to fucking work tomorrow. No. Like and Newsom said film production can start on the 12th, which is days away.
Yes.
And it's certainly not going to happen. I'm not going to be at work in days.
And by the way, Garcetti may have something to say about the city of Los Angeles.
Well, yeah, but
before Newsom has anything to say about the state. So, but again, Trump is applauding that we went from 3.3 million new unemployment claims last week to 2.5 new unemployment, 2.5 million new. So it's like we're not creating jobs. Less people have filed for unemployment.
Yeah.
We're doing so well. And double digits unemployment, but in the black community, it's at a rate twice what it is the national average.
Yeah.
So I don't understand.
Yeah. It's hard not to get upset about it every single time it happens. And I kind of feel like that's the point.
It is.
To quote unquote own the libs, but I don't never necessarily equate myself as a lib, and I don't feel like I'm getting owned. I just feel like you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You're like you have no concept of like what that means for.
Nope. And not that he doesn't have a concept, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's not even that he doesn't know. He just does not care.
He wouldn't spend extra time out of his day to help somebody else, even though that's exactly what his job is.
Yep. And he has the ability to impact millions of people. He just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So let's lightning round some of the other topics. I talked about it a little earlier. If anyone had Third Amendment, an outlier in Apocalypse Bingo, good for you. Put your chip down because the governor of Utah is flexing Third Amendment on the National Guard in Utah. Now,
it was also happening in D.C. too, I think.
So they're talking about it in D.C. It's a little more difficult in D.C.
Yeah, because they're not a state.
Not a state.
Yeah.
And theoretically, and the governor can't do anything about it in Utah either. But apparently, as I understand it, this is what happened. A hotel owner in Utah complained because he couldn't stop the National Guard from booking rooms. And as they're the National Guard, they pay the rate that the National Guard pays.
Right.
And now that things are opening back up again, he was saying, I could have those rooms for tourists coming in, but I can't because National Guard's in there and I can't get them out. Well, listen, folks, a never used amendment right that you have is the ability to, or the right to not have to house soldiers in your home. I was mentioning to Corey before we started, maybe 3 years ago, I jokingly said, because there was a bunch of people out protesting the Second Amendment, that I was going to go out there with a sign that said, protect the Third, and just be the guy who's protesting for Third Amendment rights.
It's like on the Man Show when they went out trying to get women to sign up for women's suffrage and women's suffrage now. Just trying to see when they would get called on it.
But so essentially what that says is that the government cannot forcibly house soldiers in your residence.
Yeah.
Now, what the governor of Utah is saying is that the Supreme Court, again, using, as the Baltimore Police Department does, the technicality that the Supreme Court has said, a hotel is like a residence in so much as your rights apply there. My right to privacy applies in my hotel room the same way it does my house.
Yeah.
You can't just barge in. You can't do anything. And the hotel owner, therefore, is like an apartment building owner. And for the National Guard to basically say, we're going to take over all your available rooms, but we're going to pay you for it, is a violation of the Third Amendment, which doesn't specifically say anything about payment, but later on, the Fifth Amendment does say you can't take without
remuneration.
Market remuneration. So we're in a little bit of conflict there. Nonetheless, I just think it's funny that with everything going on in the world, the governor of Utah is flexing Third Amendment. And he's going to try to kick people out. And D.C., some owners of hotels in D.C. are saying the same thing, but they're in a weird quasi-state situation. So it should be an American right, but the governor of Utah is using the 14th Amendment to apply the Third Amendment to it.
Yeah.
And D.C. doesn't have that right because the 14th Amendment says any law that is good in the several states is good in this state, none of which applies to the District of Columbia, unfortunately. So we'll see. But congratulations, winners of Apocalypse Bingo. That giant rock from space, by the way, Apophis, is on its way. It will pass closer than 16,000 miles and be visible in the daytime in 2024 or 2029. It's going to pass this summer and will be visible with binoculars at night. So if anybody was hoping for or voting for Giant Rock from Space 2020, you might get your chance. Let's hope the math is off.
Or that just it's taking its time. It's going to...
Yeah, I mean, it might be 2029. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out.
I, for one, would like to welcome our alien overlords.
We talked about the production starting up here in Hollywood, which is good news, but much like everything reopening in LA, it's subject to the state says one thing, but the county can weigh in and the mayor can weigh in depending on where you are in the city. And for Corey and other people who are working in the industry, basically this might mean he has to drive out to Simi Valley to do a shoot because they're like, we can't do it in the city. Let's go out to that jail that you shot at out in the North Inland Empire somewhere to go shoot out there.
What's interesting to me, and I don't know how many of my film people are listening to this as opposed to normal people, so I'll make it quick. But basically, it's all hanging sort of on SAG at the moment. Yeah. Because the unions, along with the studios, have had conversations about what they feel like safe sets look like.
IATSE was a holdout. They've made an agreement now on
safe set protocol. They were all sort of like arguing about salient details, but everyone seems to be sort of in line at the moment. The outlier of the unions, the important unions that are involved in the studios, is SAG, who have not necessarily agreed to anything yet. Yeah. And that is going to be the major hold up going forward, because the actors, unlike everybody else on the crew, are not replaceable if they get sick. I mean, like, you can't start shooting the movie with Tom Cruise and then flip him out with some other actor if Tom Cruise gets sick with coronavirus. You have to wait for Tom Cruise to get healthy again, which shuts down production, and then that's additional costs and stuff like that. Also, actors can't, if they're doing a role, they can't have masks and gloves and stuff like that. Yeah. Like everyone else in the crew is going to be responsible for wearing. Oh,
let's reshoot Contagion. Then they can.
I mean, like, it's just going to be really difficult to figure out exactly what this plan is until SAG gets involved a little bit here. But that's basically the, it looks like everyone's sort of ready to go. I really do worry, though, that 2 weeks from now we're going to have huge numbers going up just because more people have been in contact with each other through protests. And I worry that all this good that we might have been doing to try and flatten the curve is going to just shoot up like crazy.
Well, I don't want to skip this because what I hear you saying is that friend of the show Roberto is and was right. The actors are the most important people on a movie set.
No.
Is that what you're telling me?
Everyone plays a role equally. It's just that the actors can't be replaced as easily.
Okay.
If you can't listen, if one actor has one day of shooting, then to production, I don't think they care if they get coronavirus after the fact. But like, like what you do on your time is your time, you know. But like, if you're a star, there's going to be a lot of things that are done to try and quarantine you from the rest of
27 shooting days. You got to be there for 25 of them. We got to keep you healthy for all 25 of those days.
But you're going to be probably in, actors, and woe is me for actors, but I mean, like, they're going to have to probably stay in like a trailer to themselves, or, they'll have to be interacted with as infrequently as possible. Like, so they'll have to do hair and makeup, but they might do that outside. As sound, I would have to still mic up actors, but
you have gloves, you have a mask.
Have gloves, have a mask, probably have a shield too or something like that just to be safe. But it's still contact and interaction, and it's all unknown. That's the thing. I will say that I feel from a figuring out the coronavirus and how it spreads, we'll have a lot better information 2 weeks from now, because there's been a lot of reports that, like, being outside maybe doesn't transmit it as much, or sunlight might have more impact on disinfecting the virus on surfaces. These are all things that are
high temperatures.
These are all things that are sort of like out there that might possibly be indications that things could move forward in certain respects, but we don't know because we don't have enough data, and we might have more data in a couple weeks. So,
and related to that, report today from LA County that COVID numbers are up in LA County.
Yeah.
And New York is reporting lower numbers, but states across the South and Midwest, who were the first ones to open around Memorial Day weekend, are now reporting rises in cases.
Yeah.
And it's likely as we now are 2 weeks out from Memorial Day, and we are going to start becoming 2 weeks out from far more reopenings, 2 weeks out from the start of the protest, all of those things, that all those numbers will go up. And I told my staff today, maybe they won't. Maybe everyone being out and protesting outside, we won't see a spike.
Yeah.
Maybe the sunlight and the high temperatures really are a factor, and it'll keep the numbers down.
Yeah.
But we're delaying the reopening of my office just to see. We'll wait and see what the spike looks like, if there is one. And if it's all people in Orange County, and it's like, all right, beaches were a problem because people went and sat next to each other.
Yeah.
But protests where there's just a crowd moving and the wind and the being outside didn't cause a spike in LA. Okay, great. So we can reopen and be fine. But it doesn't bode well. I mean, New York has stayed on lockdown, hard lockdown, all the way through this. And they're the only ones who are still seeing numbers go down.
Yeah.
Everyone else is starting to see a upward movement, some more than others.
But it's always it's interesting that like there doesn't seem to be any necessary rhyme or reason for why certain places go up or certain places go down.
Nope.
There's sort of tangential evidence, but nothing that feels good enough to say, you know, this is the path forward or something like that.
Well, I mean, what it also can come down to is when you reopen, the people who are working have been working throughout. I mean, it's your restaurant workers who worked as long as possible, and then now we're working again, or we're working but doing carryout or curbside. Yeah. And the people who don't have health insurance, the people who make the least and have the lowest health scores as people, not just with not having insurance, but like, you know, you work long hours, you don't sleep a lot, you don't eat the best food, you are not in line to be the healthiest people to begin with. And I'm waiting for the senator to stand up and say, hey, we need to reward the heroes, not just the nurses and doctors, but when we said everything's got to shut down, no, Ralph's employee, not you. I need you to keep coming to work.
Right.
By raising the minimum wage and guaranteeing insurance for everybody. And where's that coming from the Senate to protect and reward our minimum wage workers? But that's just me, and I'm a crazy leftist. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I think just like one other note, I think funny that happened this week, also kind of related to Trump. The D.C. mayor renamed Pennsylvania Avenue leading up to the White House Black Lives Matter Plaza.
Yeah.
Now, this does not have an impact on the U.S. Postal Service, but it does mean that as far as D.C. is concerned, Donald Trump now lives at 1600 Black Lives Matter Plaza. So, and it is visible from space. So that's Black Lives Matter in the streets.
Well, from high above, at least. It's not, I don't know if it's space.
Oh no! So I say from space, but there is a shot from a Google Earth satellite but it's not like the Great Wall of China is actually not visible from space. Yeah. It's not like the Truman Show dome. You can't actually see it with the naked eye from space, but it's visible via satellite.
Yeah,
a commercial satellite from space.
It's really hard to see things from space.
It's very hard. Life is not Eagle Eye or that one with Will Smith where. They zoom the satellite on the license plate number and it's like, enhance. Have you watched Space Force now, by the way?
I've only watched the 2 episodes that I watched with you.
The next episode, he like walks in and he's like, enhance. And the guy looks at him, he's like, we can't just make data from nothing. This is the data we have.
That's not how cameras work.
I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so before we get out of here, I do want to touch also on a little bit of news from back home. So, of course, that means we're going to take a trip on down to the Baltimore corner.
Where you get the straight dope.
Exactly. And I mentioned offhand last episode, and that's why I want to make sure that we get to it, because people might say, fake news. Rob, last episode said, Baltimore's dumb and voted for Sheila Dixon.
Yeah.
Which there are a significant amount of dumb people in Baltimore who did vote for Sheila Dixon. However,
it looks like Brandon Scott has pulled ahead.
Yes.
And there's still votes out there to be counted. Maryland and Baltimore did not do a good job of doing their first vote by mail election on this scale.
Let's hope they get it right by November.
But, it's Brandon Scott winning, I think, is at the end, sort of the best thing we could hope for here.
TJ Miller's out. That's good news.
Jack Young was just like, I guess you don't want me, this old griddle veteran.
Our favorite council members are back.
Yeah. It was really funny seeing, oh, God, what was it in District 1? Fuck. I can't remember who the council member in District 1 is. It's killing me. But he was going to win on a runaway. Like, the person he was going against did not have a chance. And that's not... It was a Hail Mary attempt by them to try and take the seat.
It's make every seat a challenge.
Yeah.
Put a challenger up to every race.
But apparently the Scantron document that was sent to the District 1 people was misaligned.
Yeah.
So when they had initially put out the first round of results, the incumbent favorite who was not going to lose was losing 1,597 votes to 2. And he's just like, something about this doesn't seem right. And they're kind of joking around about it a little bit, but at the same time, clearly something.
So we should look at those results, I think, right?
So
yeah,
they pulled it, and basically they're having people recreate the ballot, hand create every ballot, which is going to take a little bit longer. But
also that no chance of that being abused at all, I don't think so.
But some other interesting ones, just real quick. Joan Pratt out as comptroller.
Yes,
which is something that I didn't think was going to happen, so we didn't even talk about it 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the mayor's race.
This millennium has been her as comptroller.
25 years. That's O'Malley, that's Rawlings Blake, that's Pugh, that's Dixon, that's all of them. She's been in charge of the purse strings for all of this. So probably well deserved to have a fresh face in.
And may be a reason for big news next year as they start looking at books that have been looked at by one person for the last quarter of a century.
Well, and the other one, too, is that Nick Mosby looks like he's going to win the council president seat, which is upsetting to me.
What's wrong with having a council president and a DA or state's attorney that are married? That seems completely upright and forthright to me.
I was listening to the guy running against Jackie Lacey for the DA here.
Yeah.
He was on Pod Save America, and he's talking about how he's going to change criminal justice and blah, 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 blah. And then he starts going well, there's a lot of great state's attorneys across, the country who are doing great work. And he starts rattling off names, and he's like, Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore. And I'm just like, no, not going to do it. If you think that's a good look, it's not gonna work for me. It's a no for me, dog.
Yeah.
Because Maryland consistently be fucking up.
The problem, though, is that on the surface, she looks all right.
Yeah.
You got to be paying attention all the time.
Right.
And you have to know everything that happens in between the things that happen. Because, big press conference when they charged all 6 officers. Very small, quiet press conference when they dropped the charges against everybody because they couldn't win a case.
Well, do you ever see, when something gets popular on Twitter because it speaks to a particular community?
Yeah.
Gamers or something like that? Some popular gamer will slight some other popular gamer.
And it pops up in
they use the terminology that we're not familiar with.
Yeah.
And then it's just you see that it has 250,000 likes, and you're just I don't get it. Yeah. That's sort of what Marilyn Mosby is, if anything, the queen of I don't give a fuck comments on things that she should really give a fuck about. Keith Davis Jr. Constantly just being I'm putting that guy away for life.
Yeah.
She is vicious with that shit.
P.S.
And she's an example of what it looks like when police departments get to you and make you fear for your life and think that you're never going to account for anything ever again in your life if you don't ship up right away. And boy, did she follow the company line.
I will say, though,
she'll say out loud that she's going against police corruption any opportunity she does, but she was fucking straightened up right away.
Good news for Keith Davis Jr. A case is being taken up on appeal right now, which will directly apply to him.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, he already won a new trial.
Yeah.
But then there was some language in the decision which said this only applies to cases in the future. And Maryland law, cases in the future mean anything where the issue was like withheld for appeal.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the case, a lawyer can say, all right, let's just move forward with this, but I'm going to reserve this for appeal because I think you've made an error here.
Yeah.
And that would typically be a case under which a future case would still apply. And the Court of Special Appeal or the Court of Appeals made a comment on this decision in which it made it unclear if that rule applied or if they were changing that. So now they have to hear another case that's exactly the same as the one they just heard so that they can make another ruling and clarify what we mean by this is yes.
But part of what saved that whole thing was the fact that Keith had a asthma attack and they had to postpone his case. And in the time, that other
Decision
case
came
moved. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Just unbelievable the miscarriage of justice that continues and as if the universe just aligns to he needs another trial. They're going to find him not guilty.
Yeah.
What do we got to do here, guys? All right. This is not a guy who's going to live through an asthma attack very well. It's all we got left. Asthma attack. All right. Postpone the hearing. And then the final comes out. Lawyer makes an argument. Judge says, I read it. It doesn't say that. And then they submit the clarifying language like, we may have made a mistake. We're going to hear this other companion case in order to clarify our decision. And now we just have to wait again. But
Yeah.
Marilyn Mosby has already said she will put him on trial for the 5th time on these charges.
Isn't it sixth?
Sixth trial ever. But remember, he was found guilty of a different charge first.
Yeah.
And then they charged him with murder.
Right.
And now this will be his 5th murder trial, 6th trial altogether.
Yeah.
And if he had taken a plea in the first trial, he would already be out of jail.
Yeah.
And that's
But
where we are.
he'd have to sit there with a guilty plea.
True.
Which is another thing that we didn't discuss in our big talk of systematic racism earlier, but the fact that a lot of people have to take a plea because you're looking at the chances of, you could do 2 years now or maybe 20 in jail, and what is it worth to you to say you're guilty and get 2 instead?
Yeah. And you're going to have a strike on you, but,
Yeah.
everybody who looks like me already does, so at least it equates me with the people I am in the community with.
Yeah.
But it doesn't equate you with me who doesn't have a strike.
Right.
Because the cops make different decisions when it comes to charging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
come on. Where's a good transition from that, Corey? You don't have a good transition away from Keith Davis Jr.'s 5th consecutive trial on murder?
all I can think about is all the places where you won't find a miscarriage of judgment, including OTheAnthem.com. Core to OTheAnthem.com. O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, and it's Justice too. God damn it. O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595.
We'll fix it in post.
You can find more of me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, and at LegendCV5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I did not have a review out today, but I will have one out later this week.
Ba-dum, ba-dum, bum.
I was treading carefully in creating new content because I didn't want to be seen as insensitive to something that I really care about. So I have decided to sort of let things play out a little bit more and wait until it seemed like it was more appropriate to get back into it. But hopefully Thursday will feel a little bit more acceptable for
completely unplanned. My two movies during last week were War Games, where an overreactive government learns the lesson that maybe we should be a little more restrictive with our action.
Yeah.
And Pleasantville, where the lesson is be more progressive.
And care about people who look different than you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, the universe sometimes.
It worked out well for you.
Sometimes I don't know. Anyway, you could, that's
problem is I would have just done like Josie and the Pussycat, and I would have looked real stupid.
Hey, you can find more of me at Robert and Cheek on all your social networks. Make sure you check. Of course, that's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can follow my page, my professional page on Facebook. That's Robert and Cheek. And we neglected to mention, I neglected to follow up with Corey there at the beginning, but we, of course, have the Anthem Alliance group, which you can join and be part of the conversation. We have the Discord channel, another place you can join and be part of the conversation. So make sure you're doing that for O The Anthem stuff. If you're looking for more of me, you can find that at robertandcheek.com. There, it's under construction, obviously, but we have a lot of stuff coming, including links to all the videos on YouTube. That's youtube.com/RobCheek. And you can find the books, which are available on Amazon.
Barrow's Books.
Thank you. And as Corey mentioned, he spent the week putting together some thoughts about social injustice and white privilege and those kind of things. I did the same. And on Wednesday on my channel, something a little bit different is going to be coming out. It's my June vlog entry, which is a little less of a vlog and a little more of this is something I came to think about in the midst of the protests. Privilege, my white privilege, especially social injustice, and how my life is different and needs to be different in the future. So that'll be out Wednesday. Make sure you look for that. If you're looking for more fun stuff for O The Anthem, we got something new and different coming out. It'll be on my channel, not on O The Anthem, but it does feature Corey.
What?
That'll be New Music Friday. We got a new parody song coming out, so you're not going to want to miss that. The links will be available and out everywhere on Friday. Not even going to say the name of it because the name of it will give it away, but you can find on my Instagram story currently a preview. And if you are a fan of music from the late 90s, early 2000s, the 5 seconds apparently is enough for you to know what song it is. Because I had somebody be like, "Oh my God, are you doing that song?" And I was like, "Yeah." So apparently it's enough if you know your music. So we got, I have Pleasantville and War Games out right now for the reviews. I got a review coming Thursday. I got the vlog video coming Wednesday. We have a new music video coming Friday. Tuesday will be when this video goes up. Mm-hmm. A little behind the scenes look for those of you who are still hanging out with us. We had a meeting over this weekend. We are going to get more proactive about content. We're going to get more proactive about how we look on social media and what we post on social media and being more active. So I highly encourage you, make sure you're following at O The Anthem on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. You're going to see a lot of stuff. And we're going to be looking for your feedback. What do you want us to talk about on the show? What's important to you?
Please let us know, because what we want more than anything else is we've always felt like we keep up with the news and we're learned on a lot of different issues that frequently come up in the news. So we always like to think of ourselves as the conversation you get to have with smart friends on the issues of the day. I mean, so if there's something that fits in that vein that you think that we could help and create more things in that regard, then just let us know, because we're always open for suggestions.
A few weeks ago, taking the Instagram discussions, talking about it on the podcast. But I think the difficulty with things these days are so much is happening that we end up, if we don't hear from anyone about anything, we talk about the things that interest us.
Yeah.
But we could talk about any of these topics. We could have made the main topic today and gone more detail, and we just need to hear from you. So you can do that on Discord, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Anywhere you're watching this, you currently can also get in touch with us via that means. So make sure you do that.
Well, I think we've done good here today.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the O The Anthem podcast, part of the O The Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Much like the video that's coming out on Friday, I think it's getting awfully hot in here. It's getting awfully ripe.
Oh, look for Corey's bonus footage on that. It's amazing.